Excellent. Great stuff. Cool. And I'm going to jump in and I'm going to try and keep this to half an hour. And I'm going to do that by setting a little timer there. Otherwise, I will waffle for the rest of the afternoon. As much fun as that would be for me, I wouldn't inflict that on all of you. So I'm going to jump straight in to a little presentation I like to call It's Okay Not to Be Okay. This is a part of World Mental Health Day, which is on Saturday. I'm already going to turn that timer off because that clicking is really annoying. Goodbye. For World Mental Health Day on Saturday, didn't think it'd be too fair to bring everyone in and throw presentations at you when we try to have a rest. So we've kind of spread this out over this week. I'm going to jump straight in and say that, well, in the past 9 or so months, the world has changed quite a lot. And it's changed even more over the past 200,000 years. You know, we've gone from basically being cave-dwelling, hunter-gatherer type people to being able to tweet the president. We can do whatever we want. A lot of our environment has changed, but our brains haven't. They're basically evolutionarily the exact same thing that we grew up with when chasing mammoths. We know more about the deepest reaches of space. We know more about Alpha Centauri, which is the closest planetary system, which is 9.46000000 kilometers away, than our brains. And our brains are just here. We know more about the depth of the ocean, every reach of our planet, than we do about how our brains work. And in a given year in the UK, 1 in 4 of us will suffer from a mental health issue each year. And this is in a normal year, not even a COVID year. There are signs showing that this is going to be a lot worse. Now, that's not exactly a cheery intro. I know what you're thinking. It's lunchtime. I'm trying to enjoy a snack. This is all a bit intense. Don't panic. The good thing is it's not all doom and gloom. And in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to chat about the positive changes we can make to help our brains. So a little intro to who I am. I'm Aidan. Hi. I work for Red Hat, obviously, and I have a mental health condition. I like chatting about anything agile, hand-wavy, neurodiversity, our brains. That's the kind of stuff which gets me excited because we all have brains. It's something we could all relate to. Even if you don't have a mental health condition yourself, you have mental health, and we all have things we can do for it. So I'm going to take a little trip back in time to a slightly more baby-faced Aidan. This is a baby-faced Aidan who loves puzzles, problem solving, and Pokemon, and still do now. Pretty shy, introverted, but loves entertaining and helping others out, and regularly leaves homework until the last minute. Whenever I was on the bus to school, I was nearly always doing my homework on that 20-minute journey, or in the 5 minutes before a lesson started, or in the middle of a lesson, trying to subtly hide it from teachers. And most of the time I got away with that. But when I didn't, I was told off. I was called lazy. No one ever really asked me why I didn't do the homework beforehand. They just kind of jumped straight into punishment mode. I already knew that leaving it till the last minute was a problem and a bad thing to do. Being told off wasn't teaching me anything new, and it didn't reduce the chance of me doing it in the future. Instead, it just reinforced the belief that I was lazy, weak-willed, and broken. And because I started to believe that, it just reduced the chance of me changing it in the future. But, you know, I got through primary school, secondary school, did all that, and went along to university in the wonderful Cardiff. Obviously, university is a big step up from school. You have to be a lot more self-directed. You haven't got a teacher telling you to do all the time. You need to manage your own time. Thankfully, I realized all of my previous bad behaviors and changed them, became a model student, got a first in my degree. I'm just kidding. I did the exact same thing that I've done for my entire life, knowing that I wanted to change, not being able to, and hating myself more and more as I did so. The problem was this last minute approach was good enough. I got A's and B's at secondary school. I got 2 1s in most of my modules with very last minute revision. In my January exams, I didn't click then. In my January exams in my final year, I had 4 exams in 1 week, 3 of them on consecutive days. For one of them, I started revising at 4 p.m. one day, did an all-nighter, and sat the exam at 9 a.m. the next day. This was me at 5 in the morning, sleeping outside of my lecturer's office after I think I got about 45 minutes sleep, and then just substituted the rest with a lot of caffeine. I got 65%, 2-1. I despise myself for it. I didn't want to be in that situation, but this is third year of university. It still was happening. And then came my dissertation. Traditionally, 9 months of work, planning, creating, and documenting a big old project. A lot like a usual consulting engagement, but the only irritating customers I have to deal with is myself. I am the customer, I am the stakeholder, I am doing the work. So you'd think, well, I don't have to send emails back and forth. It should be easy. I control everything. I left it till the last minute. I did it all in 3 weeks. It was the worst thing I've ever done. And I did a marathon and nearly broke my knee. This was horrible. Here I am, sleeping in the Students' Union, which basically became my home for those 3 weeks. You're not supposed to stay there overnight, but I ended up bribing the security guards with Kit Kat junkies, allowing them to let me sleep there. Wasn't great, 51%. It was good enough to get me a 2-1 overall. This is probably a good bit of evidence. Was this the long overdue sign that prompted me to change? No, it wasn't. Straight after university, I started Red Hat on the graduate scheme and absolutely loved it. Still do. I love it to bits. Most of the stuff that required on-the-spot thinking, most of the stuff in consulting, I was great at. I'm quite good at being able to act under pressure or just think of stuff and problem solve when I need to. But the stuff that required planning and revising and learning and becoming better at things over time without a fixed deadline, I didn't do so great at. And funnily enough, that's a lot of the skills acquisition. Finally, after a year in the job, I chatted to someone about my brain. And like the world's worst Scooby-Doo plot twist, everything kind of clicked into place. Before I go into that plot twist, I'm going to go on a little tangent. Tangent of horsing around. If one person says, I keep double clicking, annoying. If one person says you're a horse, ignore them. If 3 people say you're a horse, start listening. If 10 people say you're a horse, buy yourself a saddle. This is pretty sound advice when it comes to general feedback and self-development, but it becomes a problem when people are making decisions about who you are as a person, when people are trying to diagnose you who aren't professionals, or just common knowledge or stereotyping. It can be really dangerous because even though everyone's saying you're a horse, you might not be a horse. For my whole life, teachers called me stupid, lazy, and weak, and I believed it. But clearly I wasn't stupid because in the end, I could get the work done and get good grades. I wasn't lazy. I can end up doing what would take someone else a month's work in one caffeine-fueled 12-hour session. And I wasn't weak. I just have a brain that works differently to others. I did some research after this chat and found an alternative conclusion to just being called lazy, one that perfectly explained everything I've felt and experienced in life. I reached out for help. Now, admittedly, it took me a long time between learning about my brain and actually reaching out for help, but the overwhelming consensus was there. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I thought it was all about fidgeting, disrupting others, daydreaming, which, funnily enough, it was for me. You just didn't put 2 and 2 together. But it's not just that. ADHD causes your brain to release less norepinephrine and dopamine. These are 2 chemicals which are crucial for motivation and reward systems, or basically your general happiness. Those kind of experiments where you have a rat and when they pull a lever, they get sugar. That's basically what's going on in your brain at a micro scale. I was basically walking around with a brain that had a ridiculously high bar for entertainment or for doing stuff. And I tried to fill this void by multitasking or searching for the shiniest, most exciting thing. And funnily enough, playing Pokemon was always more exciting than doing the same maths problem every day. Great. I thought, well, at least I've got an explanation for my broken brain, but it says disorder in the word. Disorder isn't a good thing, it's great. At least I've got an explanation, but okay, doesn't fix anything. Then I realized that there is actually a bunch of good stuff too, such as the fact that I work really well under pressure. If other people have unrealistic deadlines, the word unrealistic doesn't really mean too much to me because I'm so used to creating those deadlines for myself. So I work calm in a crisis because, as you can see by the mess of post-it notes around me, chaos is what I generally live in and thrive in. because I'm so very easily bored, it's led to me being quite creative. I'm managing to create fun out of nothing. You'll probably know the Bill Gates quote that, I'll always hire a lazy developer. I'm going to correlate that with innovation. Rather than doing the same thing over and over, or if someone said, oh, why am I doing that way? Oh, just because everyone does it. I can't get on board with that. If I can find a quicker way to do it, which allows me more time to faff around and do nothing, I'm going to do that, which is actually a positive thing if it's always trying to find new ways of work for everyone. And finally, it's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but I don't actually have a deficit of attention. I almost have too much. I'm trying to focus on 17 different things at once rather than being able to focus on one thing. But there is a state that we can get into called hyperfocus, which is where if you find something that's in that kind of flow state of the right level of challenging, interesting, and enjoyable, I can end up working for like 12 straight hours on something and forget about everything else, which can be bad if I'm forgetting about food or drink. But I just made a website over the weekend. Originally it was just, I'll just put this together, try this, and then ended up spending 8 straight hours just on it. And I was enjoying it. I was having a great time. It absolutely flew by and I got so much done. It's like I said, not that we have a deficit. It's just difficult applying it to one thing. Nice story, Aidan. Cool. You talked about yourself a lot. So what? Like I said before, our brains are kind of adapted for 10,000 BC. ADHD is awesome for 10,000 BC. I need to be constantly scanning around looking for new things because you never know when a saber-toothed tiger is going to pop up. There's always going to be something to do. There's always going to be food to get. There's always going to be people in the tribe to look after and chat to. You didn't have to reply to 2,000 emails when you're back in the tribe then. I know a lot of people are saying that, ADHD, it's a new thing, it's just kids these days and their mobile phones and their TikToks. And it's not actually true. ADHD was first written about and noticed in the late 1700s, where, we didn't have iPhones back then. Like I said, our brains are adapted for 10,000 BC. This isn't just true for ADHD. All of our brains were designed for a time that doesn't exist anymore. And that's an important thing to acknowledge. We're not broken. We just have brains that were designed for a different time. Sometimes it feels a bit like we've got these brains which are, basically an equivalent of a Formula One car, but we're racing in a cross country or a rally. We've got these really fantastic things in here, but they're not necessarily in the right space. For some people, medication's a lifeline. It might help us to function in a way that's easier. I'll never say the word normal because there's no such thing as a normal or average brain, in the same way that there's no such thing as a normal or average human being or hair color or height. Basically, medication helps to give us either the right tires or brakes or whatever car analogy you want to help drive with everyone else. I was prescribed Zagotin, which I don't have with me as a prop, which is a shame. It's basically a stimulant that encourages a normal amount of norepinephrine to be released, which means that replying to emails won't necessarily feel physically painful anymore. And it'll allow me to stay focused on those less stimulating but important things. The short-term effects of that, at first I was like, oh my God, is this what people without ADHD feel like? Like I can do expenses and wash the dishes without it feeling physically painful. Have I been playing life on like expert difficulty all day? What, all my life? What? No. But short-term medication isn't always the way to go. Sometimes you might need to take that medication long-term. Build up strategies to support your brain. You might not necessarily want to have stimulants for your entire life there. With this, there are some side effects like appetite suppression, which isn't great when you're trying to put on weight, or vice versa. Some medication can help the opposite and causes increased appetite. What this can allow you to do, though, is this medication can kind of act like scaffolding in the short term. It helps to support your brain so you can do the stuff you need to do whilst working on long-term strategies or working with a counselor or a therapist or using techniques like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to help you find new ways, new routines, and new mental models to help in your life. Also, some could just act really nicely in a crisis. So antidepressants especially can really help if you're struggling through a tough time. Supporting you whilst you discover this is really important. And both are fine. It's okay if you take meds. It's okay if you don't. We take ibuprofen if we hurt our arm. If we break our leg, we'll wear a cast. Our brains are still a part of our body. Medication should be fine too. So I'm going to touch a little bit on this after a quick disclaimer/tangent, which is that meds aren't a magic bullet. I originally delivered this presentation on a Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Any guesses on when I started writing this presentation? It was on that. No, a little bit closer, a little bit further away than that. It was on the Monday, just about a day and a half before. Usually, I would feel guilt and shame about this. There I am. These are my wonderful waterproof notes. So I started in the shower at 8:45 in the morning. I had a first draft finish done by 1:45, and I'd finished it by 6:30. Here's the second bit. And I previously, the clicker is really not playing friendly. I previously felt guilt and shame about this. But if this works, and obviously I got it done, I presented it back then, I'm presenting it today. Good job, past Aidan. If it works, why beat myself up about it and compare myself to, I should do it this way, I should do this? Should is a pretty sucky way to live your life, because we're comparing ourselves to something which isn't a realistic standard. Meds don't fundamentally change who we are as people, they just help out. You wouldn't discriminate against someone for having a coffee in the morning if it helps them wake up. So why is medication any different? Like I said before, mental health is physical health. Our brains are a part of our body. So why do we treat it so differently? Especially when it comes to work. If you sprained your ankle or felt sick, you wouldn't hesitate to call up and say, you couldn't come into work today. I know we're not coming into work today. My commute is a little bit shorter than it used to be. But why do we find this so difficult to say, I'm feeling really depressed and I physically can't bring myself to leave bed today? Why is it so different to say that compared to, I just hurt my leg? A lot of people think, people use it as an excuse to just get off work. If people want an excuse to get off work, I can easily fake a cough. I can just go, oh, sorry, Gareth, my throat's really bad. I'm just not feeling great today. I can't come in today. If people want to fake it, they will, whether it's physical or mental. The bigger question you should be trying to answer is, why do people want to avoid work so badly that they're going to lie about it? Because this is the kind of tough thing about mental health, is a lot of the time your brain isn't feeling great, and it kind of plays this game where it tricks you into thinking, well, you're actually fine, you're just faking this, or yeah, it is just an excuse, like everyone else has their own stuff to deal with, so you should just deal with it too. This isn't actually that bad, even if you've got a doctor's note which says you are diagnosed with XYZ. You may still feel this guilt attached to it, or this shame. And especially when you feel like you can't prove it and you're already buying into this stigma, you're just going to make yourself feel worse and worse. I'd rather have people who feel comfortable to talk openly about what they're struggling with in a team with me, because only then can you actually work together to help why you're feeling that way. Some people take ibuprofen or insulin, some take antidepressants. We can't help each other unless we know what we're going through. So how do we care for one another and show people that it's okay to not be okay? A lovely thing that I like to do is a thing called check-ins. Something's disappeared in this virtual life, which is we don't have those little passing conversations. When we're walking down the corridor in the lift together, we don't have those little chats with one another. So often we're kind of stuck in this meeting to meeting thing, hour to hour, which is why I started this at 1:15 and I'm ending it at 1:45. So we've actually got time in between to stretch our legs or have a drink or get some food. So often we use how are you as an empty substitute for hello, especially in the UK. It's just, you're right? Yeah, you're right. Cool. Anyway, so about this project, we asked a question there, but we didn't answer it. It's just kind of like a boilerplate, I need to do this for politeness, but I actually want to talk about this. Instead, ask people how they're doing and really listen. At the beginning of meetings, I like to take 5 minutes to ask people how they're really feeling. It's questions like this that aren't related to work. How are you really feeling today? Giving permission to actually talk about those feelings rather than showing that it's just a generic thing. Ask what you had for dinner. What have you been watching on TV? What have you been worried about recently? What's one thing that happened recently that made you smile? What are your plans for the weekend? It doesn't matter what the question is. What matters is that it's not related to work. What matters is that you're actually listening. Because so often we don't have a chance to recognize each other as human beings. Like I said, we're too busy stuck in those back-to-back meetings. While I'm on the subject of meetings, this has probably happened to you. You have lots of work to do. And because you've got lots of work, you have to have lots of meetings about that work. And because you have all those meetings, that leads to less time for work, which leads to less time to do the work, which means stuff falls behind, which means you need more meetings about the lack of work, which means less work, which means more meetings, which means less work, and so on and so on. Two things I like to do. Make meetings 45 minutes long if they're going to be an hour, or 20 minutes long if they're supposed to be half an hour. Just reduce it by a bit. It gives people to switch contexts, get coffee, and it massively helps to reduce stress or burnout. With meetings, provide an agenda and a reason for attending. Just a little short thing at the beginning that says, we're going to be chatting about this, this, and this. I need you here so that you can talk about your expertise in architecture, or, oh, I want your input on this because it's a decision that affects the whole team. Give people a reason for attending and encourage engagement and input for everyone. Because if it's just one person doing 90% of the talking, that's not a meeting. It's a status report. It's someone just talking at you. And that could have been an email. If you feel like a meeting doesn't tick any of these boxes, or it's something where it's been mandatory that you have to go through to, but you don't feel it's valuable, say no. Mark Manson's got a great rule of thumb, which is if it's not a hell yeah, say no. Obviously, we can't say no to all meetings, but if you don't see a reason for attending, say no and give a reason why. No agenda, it's not relevant to me, or I've got loads of other work, are all valid reasons. And it's scary at first to do this, but it actually shows that you're valuing your time. And all of a sudden people go, oh, well, actually, maybe could I do this in a different way? Are other people feeling the same way? Could I shorten this into a 5-minute thing? And of course, it gives you more time to do your own work and actually just rest and not be staring at a screen all day like you're doing now. Sorry. Because you've got to defend your time, because no one else will. We need to defend our time so that we can learn more. If you're a manager, give people protected time to learn about things. Try not to get stuck in this day-to-day kind of thing of, oh, we need to do more stuff, more features, more emails, more things, stuff. When we're caught in that business trap, we're going to fall behind. Entropy is the way of the world, and everyone else is constantly changing. There's no such thing as standing still and just doing, oh, I did this yesterday, I'll do it in the same way. We need to be constantly learning, because if we're not, we're going to fall behind. Take a bit of time to learn about your team. Learn more about neurodiverse brains. OCD, for example, isn't about neatness. The amount of times I see people going, oh, I like my Sharpies to be in a organized fashion, aren't I OCD? Well, OCD is actually a disorder which leads to obsessive thoughts, which kind of go around in your head constantly, and you then have compulsions where you feel like you have to follow those obsessive thoughts, otherwise something bad will happen. That's a gross generalization of it, but it's a really impactful disorder that has an effect on your entire life and has a real potential negative impact on your life. It's not just about liking to organize your post-it notes. Like, there are so many misconceptions I had about ADHD, and I was living with it for 23 years. Learning about this is really important because, like I said at the beginning, 1 in 4 people in the UK are suffering with something. If I say, in your head right now, pick a number between 1 and 4. You got it? Got it? 3. 25% of you probably went, ooh, okay, yeah. That amount of people have a mental health issue. So we've learned a little bit more in this whistle-stop tour. Learning about stuff is the easy bit. Reaching out and asking for help is the tough thing. It's really scary, but the best thing you can possibly do. Chat to friends and family if you feel comfortable. Chat to people that you're close with at work, or mental health first aiders. Signpost people in your teams and make them aware of where to go for support. Just a little thing, like at the bottom of your email, just say, oh, if you need support this, or I'm happy to talk about your head, about mental health. Because sometimes you don't necessarily need to go to a therapist or anything. Sometimes just having someone to talk to and someone to listen is enough to help. If you feel like you haven't got anyone to talk to, there are lots of sites online or anonymous helplines and online chat rooms. Therapy and counselling. It's not just for people with diagnosis X or Y, and it's definitely not a sign of weakness. It's about investing and caring for yourself and making yourself a priority. The person in your life you're going to spend the most time with is you. You're going to spend your whole life with yourself. So getting to know that person and enjoying their company will not only make your life better, but the lives of those around you too. Why is it that we don't talk more openly about how we really feel? A lot of it is to do with our primitive brains, and I've got a separate talk all about that. But a lot of it is to do with the fear of being vulnerable. We're afraid of being judged by others, and that's in part a fault of our primitive brains. Because, 10,000 years ago, we lived in a tribe of a max of 150 people. If you are ostracized or kind of people were judging you and thought you weren't contributing or that you were annoying, you're likely to be kicked out the tribe. And going it on your own is a lot more difficult than with a tribe of people around you. So we've got these brains that are constantly finely tuned, looking for kind of, that eyebrow like raised. Or does that mean they don't believe me? Or I don't know. We're constantly doing this 5 times a second. We're looking for those signs. And there are 7 point whatever billion people in the world right now. We can connect to whoever we want on Twitter. Our brains are not designed to deal with this many potential interactions and potential sources of judgment. We're all going around afraid of being honest and vulnerable, so we kind of keep everything at surface level and pretend that everything's fine. We're in a pandemic and dealing with so much, but a lot of us are putting on this brave face and just keeping our feelings to ourselves and going, oh, got to keep on keeping on. Not only masks to help stop the spread of the virus, but we put on mental masks too, to blend in. Sharing how we're feeling helps, because people can then act with how you actually feel instead of this image or mask that we're projecting. The problem shared is a problem halved. We expect judgment, discrimination, and stigma when we talk about these kind of things. But instead, 9 times out of 10, we're met with love and kindness. There's a lovely poem here by Shel Silverstein. She had blue skin, and so did he. He kept it hid, and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, and passed right by, and never knew. So often, there are so many people around us, like I said, that 1 in 4 figure. There's very likely going to be someone around us who's dealing with the same thing. But because we're too scared to talk about it, and because they're too scared to talk about it, we're likely to think that we're the only ones dealing with it. But taking that little jump actually increases the chances of us being able to talk about someone and to find help. Sometimes when we talk openly, we won't be met with kindness. And that's okay. It's scary, but it's okay. Because every time we're vulnerable, it helps others. Even people who may go straight into the discrimination mindset, every single time they see someone talking about how they're really feeling, it's a little chip away at that stereotype. It's a little chip away about that social conditioning that we can't show any fear or weakness. It shows others that it's okay to talk about that. It helps to remind one another that we're all unique human beings with thoughts, feelings, fears, and dreams. One of my favorite words is a word called sonder, which is the passing realization that every single person you walk past in the street, or that you buy something from a shop with, or every person on the other side of a tweet or an email is a human being. They are probably scared. They've got things they're excited for. They've got family. They've got people they care about. They have their own thoughts and dreams, and they're trying their best too. Too often we kind of view people as NPCs, non-playable characters. It's a term from video games that are just programmed for us to interact with. They'll say something like, hello, welcome to Red Hat. I'm here to say blah, blah, blah. Remember, the next time that someone does something that annoys you, they're not out to get you. They're not programmed to do something to get a reaction from you. They're just doing their best for them. Other people aren't NPCs. They're playing this weird old game of life too. So let's help each other out in this game. And let's win together. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic day. I've got a bunch of links on here. Most important one, if you want to see the slide deck and click through onto all these links, is just at the bottom there, tinyurl.com/notokayok2020. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day.